This is the GPL podcast from gopherpucklive.com. This podcast is sponsored by Jerry Peters and First Class Mortgage. Our expertise, your peace of mind. Visit us at firstclassmortgage.com. Now, here's Jupe and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 221, not 121. There he is, Vigs. It was a fun weekend. I think one of the funnest weekends we've had in a long time, even though it was a win and a loss, but man, that was a fun weekend.
Great crowds both nights, great atmospheres both nights, both games delivered. I thought both teams played pretty well. We saw a lot of great things from Minnesota over the two nights, and just looking forward to the season ahead with the teams on the ice right there.
Well, before we get into this weekend series, we've got one of our favorite guests back on the air this week. Paul Caponigri is joining us. There he is. Cappy, how's it going, kid?
Good, man. How are you guys doing? You guys look fresh. Like, you just, I think with the farm, and then you
a little brighter, maybe
because you had the nice weather last weekend. You're looking a little more fresh. You're not like looking like winter weary right now.
Oh, I hope not. That's too early to be winter weary.
Yeah, we haven't got a lot of the wind chill yet.
Snowstorms.
Oh, that's tough.
Sorry to bring that kind of. I didn't want to bring any negative energy.
Yeah,
get back to the positive.
Hey, Cappy. Saw them surveying the rink. They're about ready to put the boards out for the outdoor ice. They had the surveying equipment out already because they know, once there's frost in the ground, that job gets a lot harder. So it's coming whether we like it or not.
Well, you get a long season at least, right? Like I've had some friends do it in some areas where they only get about a month, and they put a lot of work in, and they don't get the use that you guys get up there. Because it's not cold enough, for a long enough stretch. So, it might get cold, but at least you get to use those rinks for 3-4 months at least, right?
3 months these days.
3 months.
The season's gotten a little shorter.
That's a good solid chunk for how much work you got to put in.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, Cappy, we had a fun weekend this past weekend. It was insane. Really. I mean, the crowd was crazy. I was telling Vigo that I was getting warnings on my watch about audio warnings. It was too loud for a long period of time. We missed that rivalry 4 times a year, Cappy.
Sure. I mean, that's what you want in college hockey. If you think about it now, 3 of their last, 6 home games have been like that. If you count the Big Ten championship game. And that's what you want, right? That's, when they brought Bob in to kind of, rejuvenate things and get those rivalries going again. That's what you're looking for. I mean, Mariucci's a big place for college hockey, and I think the one year when they beat Wisconsin to win the Big Ten championship on the last game, it was pretty full, maybe like 8,085, and I was between the benches, so I could feel all that down there. And I was like, this place is just a monster when it's got this. So I think the students are consistent now there, which is great. Mm-hmm. That's always going to bring that. But now, everyone's not, you don't hear any complaining about ticket prices and all that stuff when you're winning and playing entertaining games. You're not hearing that much right now, which is great.
Well, one interesting thing, Vigs, is that 2 sold-out games, more than 10,000 tickets sold. I was still surprised at the number of empty seats. I think we had like 1,200 Friday and close to 2,000 on Saturday. So that part I was still a little disappointed in. I mean, you compare that to the Big Ten championship, which had cheaper seats and 5 sections of students. That was a little crazier in my mind as overall crowd, but I was just a little disappointed that a lot of people didn't show up.
Yeah, I mean, Ian in the chat here has got MEA as an excuse for people who didn't go. There's also people in high school football playoffs or soccer playoffs or volleyball playoffs that are going on. When you have people buying tickets months ahead of time for an event, there's always going to be a redemption rate issue. I think it's encouraging that it was only, around 1,000 or so for each game. Usually Minnesota's been seeing 20% of tickets don't get used. And so that's why you want to try to create a standing room only ticket allotment. That's why you want to have those students.
There were a lot of people standing and didn't go find those individual seats.
I think the
people like
students
that area, right?
I think
people like that area, right? Standing and talking with their friends and hanging on the railing. A lot of people like doing that. It's a good view up there.
It's definitely a good view. And, maybe some of the rink changes and, the ice is changing next year, maybe some of the seating changes in 2 years, Vigs, it might lend it more to some of that standing crowd.
Yeah, I think they're going to create some different areas for people to have, bar top tables or, lounge type seating around the rink, which could be fun. But I thought it was a great crowd. I thought the crowd was into it. I commented to a couple of people. It kind of felt like one of those state tourney games when you've got two giant fan bases in the building, because every time your team was touching the puck, there was just a little buzz, a little atmosphere, like this could be the play that gets our team ahead or puts us back into it. And then there's a turnover. And then the other half of the building gets that feeling and that excitement. And the students were just great. And ever since COVID, students for every University of Minnesota event has been phenomenal. Football, hockey, the students show up and they're loud and they make a big impact on the game.
Well, let's get into the actual game, Vigs, and talk about game one. First, let's hear kind of what Bob thought of the game.
Overall, I like how we played today. We got knocked around the first 10 minutes. Our D were fabulous tonight, breaking the puck out for the last 40 minutes of the game, 45 minutes of the game. Our forwards were better. But still, we got some things to show to our forwards. But overall, great atmosphere, fantastic. So it's a hell of a battle with this program.
So I would say maybe that first game, the hero of the game for North Dakota was definitely Drew DeRitter, Vigs.
Yeah, he's had a lot of experience playing for Minnesota, coming from Michigan State, knew what to expect. I think he maybe got a little bit more pressure in this weekend than he was used to. North Dakota didn't quite have the structure that Michigan State would put out in front of him, and he was very accomplished over the whole weekend. He was calm. He froze a lot of pucks. He put pucks into corners, didn't give up a ton of rebounds throughout the weekend. But I was just really impressed how Minnesota, again, had a 10-minute game from their opponent on a Friday night of a big series, and they answered the bell. The same thing against Minnesota State. I thought the Mavericks really pressured them hard for the first 10 minutes, and the Gophers were able to withstand that pressure and come out of it, pretty healthy. And I think a big part of that is the veteran D-core. They're able to get puck retrievals and break them out, and they don't get caught in their own end for long stretches of time. And I think that's been evident in 2 big tests so far.
Cappy, one thing that I think, even Vigs noticed and quite a few of us noticed in that first period, Minnesota was kind of flying against North Dakota, but boy, they still have a tendency of wanting to get that extra pass and getting a little too fancy.
Yeah, I think that's you bring in a guy like Snuggerud, right? Because he's like just a shoot first type of guy. I think it's always something that happens at home a little bit more.
Okay.
Everybody says it, teams get a little, let's keep it simple on the road, right? At home, I don't think it's like I really want to make the play in front of my girlfriend or, not like that. But it's just, I think you get it it's a kind of natural thing that happens to you. I'm going to make that sauce pass over that stick. Instead of getting this boring shot on net, you just kind of accidentally get caught up in that sometimes playing hockey. It's just a weird thing, and it's really unexplainable. But, I got to see a good, I saw the stick toss. That was perfect timing, But I just like the way Minnesota's playing. You know, and you guys said it, and their veteran decor. You just don't get that anymore of having these juniors and seniors that are first and second round draft picks in the NHL that easily could be playing in the NHL right now back, and you're seeing that's just where their core of their team is going to be all year. As kind of like, okay, we might struggle with scoring, but I think our D is going to be that consistent base, and Justin and net. So they're always going to have. I think they're going to have that all year long to rely on.
And Friday night, Vigs, Nyes kind of got off the schneid. You know, it kind of became his game when it got to overtime, and Faber fed him the puck, and he turned on a dime, put on the Jets, made a great play to the net, and won the game for him.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, I heard some reports out of Toronto during the summer that they didn't think Nyes' skating was a strength. And for me, for a guy that size, to be able to put that move on another big player and drive to the net and beat him in a situation like that shows me a lot about his skating ability. Maybe it doesn't look good in, you know, the NHL, you know, open ices or working on edges and stuff. But when you see him make that kind of power move in a game situation where it matters, it looked pretty darn good to me. He's got to find ways to create offense, bringing the puck to the net night in, night out. I think sometimes he gets caught up in the cycle and making plays along the wall. And I just don't think he's had a ton of chemistry with his line mates so far. But you see a little glimpse like that, and you're just like, there is a lot there still to be tapped.
One thing that was interesting also about this game, Vigs, is that Minnesota needed to come back and score late to tie the game and just to get to overtime. I don't remember seeing a lot of that against North Dakota in the past.
Well, it's funny. Brad Schlossman was talking about it, that North Dakota's had a hard time closing out games at Mariucci, and he was able to, you know, pull out of his memory banks like 4 or 5 games where Minnesota has been able to come back at the end and take care of the Fighting Hawks. And Mason Nevers, you know, came in off the bench, extra attacker, beaver tail slapping away on the ice. He got the puck, and North Dakota was just a split second late trying to adjust to him. And maybe they got a stick on it at the end, but he came through with a big goal. And Nevers is getting a lot of praise from the coaching staff.
Yes.
I don't think it's necessarily something that the fans see or even we've seen, you know, as much. He gets a lot of praise in practice, but it hasn't seemed to translate to the games quite as well. But he is one of the guys that's picking up the penalty kill the best. And, you know, he's chipped in some offense too now, which is something they're going to need. They're going to need depth throughout their lineup.
All right. Well, 3-2 overtime victory, game 1. Game 2, little different, Vigs, and let's hear how Bob thought about it.
Well, that was unfortunate 4 or 5 minute segment where we gave it. I mean, we absolutely dominated for 55 minutes, and then we took penalties after whistles. And we let them back in the game. And then I'll give our guys credit because, you know, outside of that little window, our guys battled tonight, and we played some good hockey. It's unfortunate that turned out the way it did. But
now, Vigs, he was definitely frustrated with the penalties. I mean, his voice was like, you know, after whistles. He was a little more animated than this weekend about things like that.
Well, I think it's frustrating for Bob. He has generally coached teams that are the lowest in penalty minutes and giving up power play opportunities across the country. That's kind of one of his, you know, DNA blueprint things is don't take bad penalties. And he addresses them throughout the year so that the guys learn and there's penalties for taking penalties. And I think with a young team, we saw, you know, Pitlick throwing the stick, which was just a misconduct. It wasn't a minor penalty, although I think it definitely got North Dakota going. But then you had Cal Thomas making a bad play against the boards where, you know, you just put yourself in a position where the referee is going to make that kind of call. You got Chesley getting a little stick penalty. And then you have Cooley, you know, grabbing the face mask. You know, those are big momentum turning kinds of plays that that Bob just does not like. He hates offensive zone penalties. He hates stick penalties. He hates after the whistle penalties. And so the one bright spot out of this is that they were able to come back and send the game to overtime. And that's what you like to see as a coach, even when they have like this little lapse in discipline. They were able to rally back and recover, which is encouraging.
One thing that was surprising to a lot of fans, Cappy, was Moscow decided to start Bartoszewicz for game number 2. I know Vigo's got some feelings on this, but a lot of us were quite surprised by that.
I mean, I was, but I, think about it, and everyone's going to have their opinion, but this team isn't. It's October. They're not. I don't think they're at any point they're going to be fighting for a pairwise position of like 12, 13, 14. Hey, this is whatever. Hey, this team is too good. I can say it. It's it's not. I'm just calling it the way I've seen this team play so far. That they're not. That's not what he's thinking. He's thinking I got to check now. Personally, I would have had him play against Lindenwood probably the second game, maybe, but
he did get that one.
He okay. Then. I didn't know he played that game. I thought Close played both those games. So, yeah, maybe a little more puzzling. But you know what? Hey, you lost your goalie last year in January. Everyone thought the season was over, and Justin hadn't had any time really before that. And then he comes in there, and now he's you'd be lost without him. It's just crazy how that happens. And hey, it was weird 5 minutes that happened. Those pucks, it was a weird. It wasn't like he was whiffing on pucks. Maybe if Justin's in there
and over him, it was really weird.
Yeah, that first goal, even that Blake goal was a weird one. Like I don't know, like it got deflected. I'm pretty sure it was going far side and went short side. So I mean, I think that's going in on most goalies, to be honest with you. So for me, hey, this and what they did, they ended up getting the 33%, whatever the hell. It ended up even out like a split essentially for the weekend. Frustrating for fans, I'm sure, but in the long run, it's not as bad. You're not going to remember that come February, or you will if he's had pressed to come in and he's had a little experience, thankfully, and he's prepared him a little bit. And I think it was the recruiting thing I heard about, like. I don't know, it's one of you guys or that talked about it. Like, we got to know what we have in this guy. Do we need to bring in another goalie type of thing next year? I mean, hey, these coaches, man, they're thinking the next minute, the next hour, then the next day, and then 6 months from now, all that stuff. So there's a lot going into it.
I know you've got some thoughts on this, Viggs. A lot of people were hitting you up on Twitter this weekend, but let's just hear about what Bob actually thought about it after the game.
Can you walk me through your decision to start Bartow over Close?
We wanted to give him a shot. We wanted to get him in there. That's all I can tell you.
I think you said something about after the Minnesota State series that you need to get these young guys experience in games like this in non-conference to develop your program. Is that part of what goes into things like that?
Absolutely. It's still, it's a long season. He hit 6 shots until we put him, like, we kind of hung him once dry there, and I feel bad for him. It was kind of a good game for him to feel it, and cruise through the game. But then we did some things in front of him that you shouldn't do.
Viggs, I noticed he had a little smirk for you when you asked that question, because he's like, "Yeah, you're right."
Yeah, a little eye contact there.
Say anything.
He was trying not to, but there's a little smirk I could see there.
That wily pro Vigo got it out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Bartoszewicz, he's a goalie that kind of bailed out the Gophers last year. Mm-hmm. They had a goaltending situation with LaFontaine leaving and Close being the guy. Brennan Boynton was not going to be an option for Minnesota. Much like Bob Motzko and Jared Moe did not see eye to eye. Same thing with Boynton. Like, he just was not going to be an option for the Gophers last year. So
and 2 of the guys have started in front of him at AIC.
Right. He hasn't played at AIC either. So there's something there. Whatever it is. So Bob brings in Bardo, who is a pro style goalie. He's a big body guy. He's all the things you look for in physical attributes with the size, the positioning, the athleticism. There's a project there for him. But he's a young goalie. He needs to play games to improve. As much as people think that you can practice and get better, the goaltending position is very different. You have to see live pucks. You have to see adversity. You have to give up bad goals. You have to be in front of a crowd. These are things that are important for goaltender development. Justin Close, he played, like 60, 70 games a year in Kindersley. He's an older player, mature player. He's played a lot of games. Bartoskevich hasn't. He's not from a big hockey background. He played in Texas. He played a little bit in USHL. He wasn't the number one guy. So he's got to get some opportunities in the net. And, they took that away from him by pulling him out of Youngstown last year. And so he needs some games here and there. And it's October and recruiting is underway. And if you need to find a goalie to fill in, they've got Weiss, who's the kind of Owatonna kid who's a late bloomer for hockey. He's a football player mainly, I think, in high school, then decide goalie's his thing. That's their third goalie right now. So if you're a program like Minnesota, you can't have a bad situation in goal. If you think whatever you have in goal is unclear in the future, you're going to put more eggs in the basket of either recruiting a goalie or looking at guys who are going to be in the portal. And they have to know that. And you're not going to tell that in games against Lindenwood, every time. They need to play some big games. And Bob didn't want to do that, putting him in the net at Minnesota State, but at home against North Dakota, after they won an overtime game the night before, playing well the last 6 games, that's a pretty safe situation. And it looked that way up until the penalty.
Yeah, up until Pitlick scored and threw his stick up over the glass.
Can't we just have some fun? No, I get it. It's probably like they probably were like did he do that on, like, they were probably shocked, like, did he do that on purpose? We got to do something about that, right? But then the guy threw it back on the ice. Oh. I'm like, okay, let's just play on. The Sioux fan, or the Hawk fan, got his revenge by throwing it back on the ice like a Wrigley Field, throwing a ball back from a home run from the visiting team. But yeah, that was unfortunate.
I was up in the radio booth because it's a slightly different place where I could shoot and up and down in the ice. So I was right next to Frank and Wally and Pat Micheletti. And I didn't see Pat's reaction, but Frank and Wally, they were like, oh my God, they were sitting back in their seats like, did that just happen? And then Viggs, you were even asking, is this something that's going on in the NHL? Am I missing something?
Well, I'm asking if it's something in the video game, because Zegras and Hughes have done this after overtime goals as part of their celebration. Right. They go up and throw in it's overtime, so the game's over.
Overtime, game over, right?
So I was trying to think, NHL 23 just came out for the PS5 or whatever version we're on right now. I'm 43. I'm not as hip to that as I was 20 years ago when I was playing the games, but I remember. Back then, there was a update made to the series where after you scored a goal, you could do sellies. So you could do like the archer, you could do the kayak, you could do the magician. Like there are all these celebrations you could unlock. The swordsman. And so
the Timu shotgun thing, or
yes, you could throw your glove up in the air and shoot it. There's all kinds of sellies that you could unlock in the game. And so I'm just wondering, did NHL 23 just come out and the kids have been playing it and there's a throw the stick in the stand selly and Pet looks like, I'm doing that against North Dakota. I'm doing it. Not thinking of the consequences.
I think it had more about him thinking I should have scored long before this. It was his first goal of the season. Maybe he just felt like something's off his back. But he obviously got the 10-minute misconduct. Got out roughly 2 to 3 minutes, something like that left in the second. Didn't play. Then he didn't play Viggs through 15 minutes, roughly.
Yeah, he was stapled to the back bench.
He was
next to Ben Gordon,
and he was
just taking it, and he was sitting back.
But you've talked about presence and attitude, and like that kind of coach kind of waits a lot of times, and he's thinking, he's sitting back, he's not thinking he's going to play. If he's leaning forward into the game, standing, maybe I should put him in there. It turns out Pitlick was just sitting back. But Motzko, after he lost Cooley, he was running short on lines and short on energy, so he had to throw him back out there. And boy, Viggs, he came this close from scoring about 7 seconds after he jumped on the ice, which would have just been nuts. But just thinking that I don't think he would have played unless they were not short on players.
Yeah, I think once Cooley was out of the game, the bench was short. They were getting a little fatigued. You could see during the third period, North Dakota started going to their cycle, and they weren't even really looking to put pucks on net.
No.
And it was a situation where the Gophers just didn't have the legs to go end plays and get the puck back. So that was in a tough spot. But I was thinking back to Kevin Fiala and how the Wild treated him and how he got benched sometimes at the end of games. And their coach basically said, well, I wanted to see how he was going to react personally. Is he going to sit there and pout, or is he just going to say, well, I might not be playing, but I can support my teammates? And once he saw that, he put him in the game. Now, I don't think that's what Bob was doing. I think Bob was going, we're looking tired. We could really use a guy like Rhett out there. And it almost paid off. If he would have done maybe a little bit louder beaver tap like Nevers, maybe we would have seen goals like that in back-to-back nights.
Cappy, have you ever done anything stupid like that in a game? Or what is something stupid you've done you're thinking, what the hell was I thinking?
Oh. I mean, I don't have a long enough show for that. I mean, I've never done a celebration really that I can remember. Maybe anything just like kind of like to the crowd or something. If you're on the road, the student section, like Cornell has a really fun student section. Yeah. I mean, I wrote one story when I was playing. We were playing Cornell. It was the day of Ohio State Michigan football game, and we're playing them that night and Saturday. And Michigan beat us at noon. Noon game, whatever. We come out for warm-ups, and the Cornell band is playing the Michigan fight song as we enter the ice for warm-ups.
Okay,
and
that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was funny. Like, I mean, I'm I laughed. I'm like, I love that kind of stuff. Like but you want to be able to give back to them. And, we end up beating them, and, you could taunt the fans a little bit. So, it's give and take with that. That's a whole different story. This stick toss, I was like, I had seen it. Like you talked about, I've seen those guys toss them. Yes, in overtime, a game is over. The stakes are done. But we're in that world where we see everything and we copy what we like, and he, the emotion of scoring a big goal, he lost it. I'm sure he won't do that again, based on the punishment, and I'm sure the coaches spoke to him. And I think it's something where like, it's a good lesson to get in October, right? Vig's not in February or March. So, to go back to the game and not go on a huge tangent, I liked how the game ended, because you're watching that and you watch him score the fourth goal, and you look at the bench because it goes right to Bob, right? And then you see the players, and a lot of players have deer in the headlight eyes, like, holy shit, what just happened, right? Mm-hmm. But they came back. They battled back. They were the better team most of the series, which that hasn't always been the case with when they're playing North Dakota. So I can see he's like, I want to punch him, but then I also want to hug him. It's like both emotion. Like he's pissed at him, but then he's also happy with him because they did some things where you've seen the Gophers get some trouble like that, and then it just goes downhill and they lose 6-2, right? And that did not happen. They came back. They got the percentage points, whatever you want to call it. And so lessons learned, hopefully, but I love the way they came back in that game.
Viggs, Motzko used the word battled. And they really did, after they were down, after they were stupid, they really recovered. Couldn't quite win the game, but he liked what he saw.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing we can take out of the last two series for Minnesota against the Mavericks and Fighting Hawks. Those are typically two series where Minnesota has had a tendency to get caught up, showing off their skill in transition. I thought these last two series, they showed their compete, They showed their battle in front of the net, winning second chances with their forecheck. I just was really impressed with that. That's something we haven't seen at Minnesota for quite a while.
Definitely. Well, we're wrapping up that part of the season, and now we're kicking off the non-conference part of the season. But before we get into that, we need to hear from our sponsor.
Hey, Gopher hockey fans. Jerry Peters here with First Class Mortgage. Mortgage rates have gone up in 2022. We've seen it on the news all year long, and many first-time home buyers are asking themselves, can I still afford to buy a home? My question is, can you still afford to rent? The Department of Housing and Urban Development recently came out with their American Home Ownership Survey. It shows that the median renter now pays almost the identical monthly payment as the median homeowner. In fact, over the past 2 years, the national median monthly payment for homeowners has gone up 5.5%, while at the same time it's gone up 10.6% for renters. What does all this mean? It means it's still a really good time to buy a house. And if you're in the market, let me help. My telephone number is 612-940-3291. My email address is jerry@firstclasscorp.com, or go to firstclassmortgage.com and fill out a free online application. Mention you heard about me on the GPO podcast and receive a $500 closing cost credit. Some restrictions do apply. My NMLS number is 480200. First Class Mortgages is 322842. This is not an agreement to lock into an interest rate under Minnesota law. First Class Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
All right. Thank you to Jerry for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Well, it's time to play Ohio State. And, and that's why we always have Cappy on. He's obviously a former player, former superstar with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Cappy, Ohio State's, they're leading the league. 6 points. They swept Wisconsin already when we thought Wisconsin really wasn't much. I'm not sure they still are, but at least they're out in the lead so far.
Yeah, who knows, right? With Wisconsin, I feel like the Buckeyes won 4 games last week, or they got credit for they swept, and then they got another sweep because Wisconsin goes out and sweeps Duluth, that's going to be great for pairwise probably down the road. You would think. I assume Duluth is going to turn it around, or who knows? But the guys that you expected to be their top guys are being their top guys, and then they have a couple of one transfer, I think, and defense that's helped, and then a couple freshmen. The two names that obviously stick out: Stephen Holiday. Holiday's got 9 points leading the team, and then Tyler Duke on the back end, whose brother obviously is Dylan. Michigan's a sophomore. He's a U.S. national team. They don't get a lot of U.S. national team guys at Ohio State. They got him to go into that D-core with Lorai and McWard to really solidify things. And, it all starts in that, Dobish is you call me biased or not. Portillo's right there. I love Justin Close too, but I think Dobish might be the most talented. And it's showing right now. I mean, his numbers are great, and then he also had a kind of a stinker at UConn too, and his numbers are still really dynamite. So it starts in the net, and Steve Rollick's system, as Viggs loves to, they're very smart. They don't make a ton of mistakes, and their power play's been pretty good so far this year. They got 8 power play goals in 8 games. So we'll see. They're still that team. They don't have a stars up front. They're going to come at you with 3-4 lines, but they can all chip in some goals. They're going to get some guys like Sedlocha, the senior. He's kind of coming alive at 5 goals. You didn't expect that. So, I think I heard Rollick once say earlier, he's like, hey, I just want everybody to get a little more. So if a guy that had 5 goals last year, maybe he gets 8 this year. A guy that had 10, maybe he gets 12 or 13. And, just improve a little bit, and that'll help balance, because losing Georgie from last year is really the one big link that they lost.
Well, like Cabby said, Viggs, it starts with Dobish. It really does. He can shut anybody down.
Yeah, I think that's always the big concern when you play a team like Ohio State, because they can really frustrate you with their structure if you let them. So they're going to have to find ways to get him moving. I thought Dobish got tired at the end of last year and just wasn't the same goalie down the stretch, maybe for Ohio State that he was early in the year. So maybe that's something for Minnesota to really focus on, is have long zone time possessions and try to wear him down a little bit, maybe being early in the year. That's an opportunity for them to attack the Buckeyes. But I do think Ohio State is my third team or maybe fourth team in the Big Ten, depending on how Michigan does. I think Notre Dame's the clear challenger with Minnesota for the top of the league. But I think Ohio State, they've just got so much veteran depth. And I think they're going to be a deep team. And Rolik always seems to find a way to figure out what he has on his roster and how to make it work. You know, when he's got skill and talent that can get in transition, he finds ways to use those guys and use their strengths. When he's got a team that's got a good goalie and good defenseman, he puts in a tight structure and a neutral zone setup that really limits other teams. And he's a great coach. And I think he knows what he has here, and it'll be a big test for Minnesota.
Corey asking, the day the Gophers finally get an NHL-bound Dobish/Portillo is the day they become unstoppable. We thought we had that in LaFontaine, Viggs. He was the goaltender of the year.
And he was a drafted goalie, and he was your prototypical guy, you know, big, butterfly, positionally sound, very athletic. That was a big surprise when he left. But I think one thing with Minnesota and goaltending, the state as a whole does not produce a ton of great goaltenders. For whatever reason, the community model of Minnesota, you know, you put your best athletes at defense. And Minnesota does a tremendous job developing defensemen. But our goaltending development in the state has always kind of fallen a little bit behind. You know, there's been a couple like Ottinger, you know, was a high pick type guy. And I think there's one other that I'm missing, but there's a lot of other guys like Hunter Shepard was not viewed as a dominant goaltender at Grand Rapids. Mm-hmm. And he played in the NHL for a couple of years, and then he gets back-to-back titles at UMD. Who saw that coming? So I think it's tricky to project goalies, and Minnesota definitely hasn't had the elite talent at goalies. They've found some good ones like Shearhorn and Wilcox have been good, but they just haven't had the great ones.
Lindgren was the other one.
Charlie Lindgren was good, but I don't think he was deemed like a top player. You know, when he was a goaltending prospect, he was very good at St. Cloud, but he wasn't that kind of prospect when he was coming up.
So what do you expect?
Hauser? Would he be the only one? Hauser?
I mean, there's Hauser, there's Frazee.
Go back 20 years now.
You know, the thing is, even Hauser was thrown under the bus a lot. I mean, it's even famous, the old, you know, KFAN guy, you know, Jeff Dubé on here. He was on the podcast many years ago. You know, when he wins a national championship, Hauser does. The first thing he does when he walks by Dubé, what do you think of me now? Because Dubé was just loved to throw him under the bus. A lot of people like Stauber, but it's not like he had it. I mean, he was in the NHL for a while, Viggs, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at college goalies, I looked at like the last 10 teams to win national championships. It's pretty rare for those goalies to go on and be like NHL stars. Like they have a hard time even finding a spot in the NHL sometimes. So it's a little strange college goaltending. Like who would have thought that guy at Minnesota State, man, how did he do it?
Who knows?
Hey man, Justin Close. Hey, talk about what would be a story. That guy wins the national championship. That is the story of all stories right there. I know we were talking about homegrown guys, and that was the behind it, but man, that'd be incredible stuff if he's able to.
Close is a steady goalie. You know, he doesn't give up a lot of big rebounds. He's very calm in the net. I think he moves pretty well. The one problem I think with him is, you know, when there's a lot of traffic or there's battles in front of the net and he has to just try to get big, he can only get so big, you know?
Right.
And we saw North Dakota's power play. They got the goal where one time he was kind of, you know, well, that was Bardo, but that's the situations that a guy like Close can get in where they have to think about cheating across. Mm-hmm. And right now with the way the Gopher penalty kill is, that's something he'll have to think about when they're playing Ohio State.
Right.
Cappy, when is Ohio State going to get just a normal arena for hockey?
What, why did
You have to do it
you have
because
to bring that? Why
we
did you
have
bring
to.
that up? I mean, you have to. You
bring it
know
up
why
because-
honestly, you more have to do it, and you guys will respect this because you have it. But you have a national championship, #1 ranked women's hockey team playing in a garage. And I'm not afraid to say it anymore because, and I
Yes.
love my school. I went there and all that, but every other program has gotten a brand new building. Like the volleyball team in wrestling has this beautiful new arena. There's all kinds of new stuff all over the place at Ohio State. And you have a #1 Ohio State women's hockey team just won the national championship. You have a perennial top 10 to 15 men's team in the last 10 years under Steve Rollick. And there's just it's not coming. I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not trying to make anyone mad. It's a lot of money. I get that, but it is a travesty that especially the women's team. I don't know. You guys have probably never come near that rink. They're playing in a little practice rink that could maybe get about 1,000 people in it. And they are a national championship winning team, and they're the #1 team in the country now. So sorry to get on that tangent, but you fired me up.
Nadine Mirzel is not like a quiet coach. She's a loud personality. She is outgoing. I can't believe it hasn't happened with her behind the bench.
Yeah.
A 5,000 seat arena. I mean, that's kind of the standard.
I would take a 3,000 seat arena. Let's put it this way. I've heard this.
Let's make something for both teams.
Right. But what I've heard.
Sorry, you're not going to fill a 15,000 seat arena with the men's team either, at least not now.
No. The last rumor I've heard, and I'm so sick of hearing this stuff, is that they were going to maybe build a 2,000 to 3,000 seat arena attached to the Shot and Scene Center that the women would play in, and then they would be the practice facility for both, so that the team would be there, the men's team would be there the whole time, and then maybe you'd still play most of your games in the Shop, but they would play maybe like their non-conference games early in the year, say against whoever they get. The men would play, Bentley, who they just played. If they came next year, they would play in that smaller arena when they know they're not going to get crowds. But it's been all rumored, it's just, you got 90 million. I mean, they do have the money, but they just don't feel, of course they do. They just, hey, I
know.
I've fought it for so long. I mean,
keep fighting, man.
Everything about the Schottenstein Center is great, aside from you're in too big of a place. Like the locker room's great, the workout facility, everything is great, except for you don't get the good vibes,
the reason I bring
college style vibes.
I bring it up because how great would it be? You've got #1 men's team coming in this weekend. You got #2 women's team coming in this weekend. Yep. Those games could have great atmospheres for both games. Well, instead, they're going to play them about at the same time. The men are going to play in this gargantuan place, and the women are going to play in a dump at the same time. So, people can't even go watch both games. And I was just thinking, how great would the atmosphere be this weekend for both if you had like a doubleheader, an afternoon, an evening game, and the men's team, because you get a 4,000, 5,000 seat arena. That place is going to be hopping, Cappy, but you got 4,000 or 5,000 in that cavern. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is they've gotten great, like the Gophers, their student section I'm almost jealous because we did not even have one back then. And we actually got good crowds. Like we were post-Christmas, that bottom bowl was full, because we had a good team, and it was different then. We had NHL guys on our, we had some names on our team back then, but the student sections is really great back there now. So I think it's going to be a lot like that this weekend, where you're going to get a bunch of students in there. I think they're trying to do some promotions. But then, it's late October, man. People are thinking about Buckeye football, even on a Friday night. It's like people have their, it's this season now, then it's hockey season this time of year. I mean, I don't think they're going to have terrible crowds, but it won't be like 8,000 or 9,000 that you might see in February, like last year when they were there playing the Gophers.
Bob
It'd be a lot
did
more exciting, Vigs.
Bob did say at availability today that his team had no problem getting up for the Mavericks. They had no problem getting up for the Fighting Hawks. And then he didn't quite go forward, but he said energy is going to be important this week for our team. We're going to have to figure out a way to bring our own energy. He could feel it in practice on Monday that just everything was a little down. Maybe it's because they had to watch Rhett Pitlick skate Herbies or something, because he did say he was going to address that on Monday, and they felt bad for their teammate. But you could just tell that their energy level is not quite up to where it could be. And so that's going to be an issue for them on Friday and Saturday at Ohio State. I kind of wonder sometimes with a place like that, I'm not as familiar with the campus as I am the University of Minnesota, but at the University of Minnesota, it is hard to find a place to do a construction project. They kind of have to go find plots of real estate to do projects like that. I know St. Thomas, as they're looking for a site for their rink, they've been shot down all over, and it sounds like they're going to have to tear down some dorms and build a rink on campus and just deal with their own neighborhood for that. It's going to be a parking and transportation mess, but that looks to be the place where they're going to have to build their rink. But is there a situation like that at Ohio State with how things are going?
I don't. Yeah, it's exhausting. There's land out there just past where the hockey's kind of lined up along with like baseball right there, and then behind it. Now you'd be a little farther away, but there's plenty of parking there, and the students can find their way to get there. They nowadays with transportation and whatnot, they make it pretty accessible. I don't know. I know what's back
I'm
there.
not trying to make excuses for him.
No. I don't know what the politics is of it. Because what I know from what I've been told, where all the old ice rink where the women play, then they have these very old facilities, the former basketball / volleyball / wrestling. They still do the skull session there for the football pregame. Those places are ancient, and you'd love for them to demolish them and do something else. But from what I've heard, if they bust those down, they don't belong to the athletic department anymore. So it would not be there to build sports facilities, is what I've been told. And I don't know what they would do at St. John's. St. John's is an old classic building. I don't think they want to knock that down. That tradition of football and the skull session there as they walk through, the players walk in there and they play on the way to the game is like the biggest tradition at Ohio State, aside from dotting the I's. So I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly, and I appreciate you asking me because you got me all fired up late at night, which is fine. But I don't know. I go in and I have friendships. JD Bittner was a teammate of mine. So, and I see Steve Rollick, and I'll go in and have a chat, and they'll say, well, we saw this, and but they get mad too, because it's just frustrating because it's not all about just, hey, build it. The politics of the money and everything. It's a lot. It's not easy.
Every team is going to do it. Every coach is going to say it. Our facilities stink. We need better facilities. It's kind of the thing to do, but you really need that corporate. You need that fan. Right. That you need a famous something like that, or a famous player that goes on the NHL Network. So talk about it and says, just some other type of pressures, because Vigs coaches are always going to say that no matter what.
Well, every school wants to make upgrades. Mariucci's getting upgrades. For a long time, it was the locker room, and then it was the training facilities, and now it's going to be the ice size. And I think you just have to try to keep up. And I think the contracts that the Big Ten is signing for their TV deals eventually will trickle down and handle some of these issues. Because with Minnesota, they're not getting donors for this next round of upgrades at Mariucci. It's coming from that TV money. So I imagine eventually Ohio State's going to be in the same situation.
And, the tricky thing about it is the facilities aren't bad. It's like, well, at least for the men, everything at that arena is first class. It's just the game atmosphere is what's the missing part. And that can't be quantified. It's not the same as say if you're a top recruit, and this is my school. I don't want to knock this down with the women's team, but you walk into that building, or you walk in. If I'm Nadine, I'm showing these people everything but the rink. Like, who I'm going to bring you in. I'm taking you to a football game. I'm showing you all the beautiful stuff there. I am not showing you. I'm showing you 2 minutes of practice and have the players take you whatever and show you all the great stuff around. And that's just bottom line what it is. There's no way to sugarcoat that.
All right, Viggs, let's talk about the games. Friday night, 5:30 game, Big Ten Network. Cappy was saying before, sounds like Fred Pletch will be on the call there. Saturday's not on regular TV. It's a 4 p.m. start. It'll be on BTN Plus streaming only. So probably a student crew, but hey, get to see it. But thoughts on the actual games themselves here?
I think for Minnesota, they're going to be making some changes to their forward groups. I'm interested to see what that looks like. Minnesota's dealing with a couple illnesses that have come in, a couple bumps and bruises after their start to the season. So I don't expect to see any big surprises with things, but it's going to be interesting to see what Bob does. I think he wants to get Cooley a little more comfortable on the ice. Mm-hmm. I think he wants to get Hughlin contributing a little bit more offense. I think he's playing okay, but it's just not leading to productivity. So I think that's something they're looking to do. I think Brody Lamb has been a surprise for Minnesota this season. You know, they weren't even planning to bring him in this year until Bros left, you know, and that opened up a spot. And Bob said, you know what? We're not going to have you spend another year in Green Bay. We've got a spot for you if you want to take it. And so he's been a nice surprise. I think Charlie Strobel's been a surprise. So trying to figure out how to fit those guys on lines where they can be productive is going to be important. And the other thing is the penalty kill. It has not looked good the last couple times out.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. You know, North Dakota really took advantage of Minnesota. One, getting them out of their rotations at the top of the zone, and two, beating them at the net. You know, there were guys attacking the net, and they were just getting outnumbered, and Minnesota was not clearing the puck on the chances where they had to make clears. So I think those are some big points of emphasis. You know, Bob doesn't want to work on the penalty kill in games, obviously, but it's going to happen from time to time.
What does Ohio State need to do to win this weekend, Cappy?
Play better at home against Minnesota. I think maybe they're happy that they're getting the home series in the first half of the year, because the last, I don't know, I can't remember, 3-4 years, it's always been the reverse, where they played at Minnesota early and they'd have that February series at Ohio State, and Minnesota would come in and take at least 4 points. It seemed like last year they swept them. They just got on that roll. That was when that Pitlick, Hughlin, and I think it was Lucius line just lit them up. If I recall, at least in the one game, Pitlick had a couple goals in one of the games. If Minnesota's struggling, the Buckeyes are going to have to score on the power play. And they've been as consistent as I can remember in the last 3 or 4 years on the power play, early in the season, 8 games in. Mason Lohrei is a he captains that power play. He's a first round talent. He's a stud with the puck back there. And Wise can score a power play goal. And this freshman, Stephen Halliday, who I mentioned, is a sniper. He's only got 2, but they're both power play goals so far. He's got 7 assists. He's got some hands on him. He's a guy that you wants the puck, on that side wall or that hop top of the circle on his. He's a left-handed shot, so on that right circle. And then Dobish has got to be good. Obviously, I mean that's but Minnesota's got so much coming at you. You say they're trying to find their lines. I'm like, they remind me of Ohio State, is where I think anybody can score, and they have depth that way. But then they have these ultra ridiculous talent guys too that it hasn't come every game, and it will be interesting Friday, and that's why I have a certain prediction for the series. But it is tough. It's going to be tough for the Gophers, I think, coming down from such an emotional, especially Saturday night's game, and the highs and lows and the roller coasters there. But the Buckeyes, the power play is going to be big, especially like you said, if Minnesota's struggling on the PK, and then Dobish and nets. I mean, that's just kind of. It's going to be every game. Someone asked me a game where Ohio State needs to be successful. Dobish plays well.
Well, then let's hear that prediction. What do you think? What are the point distributions this weekend?
I think the game will go to overtime on Friday, or first game one. The game will go to overtime, and then we're playing 3-on-3, so who knows? I'll say Ohio State wins in overtime, and then I think the Gophers take game two.
Okay.
They're just from what I've seen, it's very early. They played 6 games. I just think that D-core is just elite, and they have enough scoring up front that it's going to happen. And Justin Close is a really solid goal. He's exactly what this type of team needs. I just think right now it's going to be great hockey, I think, again. And the only way I see, the Buckeyes maybe splitting is if Minnesota comes out and, like you said, they're just drained a little bit on Friday night after that series.
What about you, Viggs?
Boy, I'm nervous about Friday's game.
Oh.
Just the kind of the energy around the team and the program, and some illness creeping in. I think it's definitely like that trap game kind of feel, where they are probably going to be making some uncharacteristic mistakes. They're going to be on the kill. There could be some bad goals around the net, things like that for Minnesota when they're going up against a very veteran Ohio State team that I think is going to play pretty steady. I could see Minnesota out shooting them like 40-20 or something like that, and kind of controlling play, but I don't think they're going to come out with the win on Friday. I think Ohio State steals the first one, and then I think Minnesota is going to get a little bit of a tough film session Saturday morning and play much stronger on Saturday, much more disciplined, and that's just what I think, and I think we'll see a split.
I'm kind of thinking along the lines of you, Cappy, but with Minnesota winning in overtime Friday night. And I'm just trying to get back to Mr. Positivity and saying 5 points for the Gophers, which still puts them behind Ohio State in the standings. But
you're going to talk games in hand in October? So obviously what's going to happen is Minnesota's going to win 6-2 on Friday, and the Buckeyes are going to win 3-2 on Saturday.
Just like we thought last weekend, Biggs. Remember when we had Brad on? It's going to be a wide open game Friday night, but they'll hunker down Saturday.
Yep, kind of the opposite happened. I think they played real structure, and then they just couldn't help themselves on Saturday. But I think that's what we'll see. I'm not going to say.
Go ahead,
I guess the one thing I'll say is that, like I just said, Minnesota's got some good vibes of playing in that building, and with a lot of those same players back, especially the D, like Jackson Lacombe has played really well there. Johnson has played well there. And then, like I said, Huglin and Pitlick last year as young freshmen, they were kind of like their coming out party a little bit. You saw Pitlick score a couple really nice goals. That, you walk into certain buildings. I had a couple of those when I played. Notre Dame was a dump, but I had a great games there. So I loved going into that place. Miami, Ohio is that. Guys go into buildings that they, maybe feel a little extra juice because they remember, I had some good games here before. So that could be a factor, I think, for the Gophers.
And I think we'll see Huglin and Pitlick together this weekend. I think that's a pairing that works going forward. They're both players who do very well controlling the puck along the wall and then coming off the wall to make offense. And I think you pair those two guys together, you got something going there.
Agreed, 100%.
Thanks for coming on with us again, Cappy.
You got it. I'll see you guys in December. Well, you'll see me in December.
Oh, are you coming to do a broadcast?
No, mostly studio stuff for me this year is what it looks like. But one thing I guess I'll say it now is we're still on the podcast. If you want to, I'll be on Big Ten Today tomorrow via Zoom, and we'll do I think we're gonna like a 10 or 12 minute preview of the Big Ten season, and
all right,
and then at the end we'll get a little preview of the game Friday night.
Beat that out.
Tomorrow's Big Ten Today.
You kind of know when you're going to be on because I can flip on this.
I'll pop it on there, an hour before the show or so tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
But yeah, look for that.
And make sure you get the palm trees in the background tomorrow as well.
Well, when the sun's out, I'll try to get the window and the.
Don't you have a remote set up at the golf course before your tee time where you can just do it?
I shouldn't I? I mean, I should put my phone up on the cart on the inside and just drive the cart and talk. Hit a shot, keep talking.
Really obnoxious golf outfit, really bright colors.
I'm not that guy. I can't do that. I'd make fun of that guy. I'd be a hypocrite if I was that guy too. So
Well, anyway,
Oh,
thanks for
goodness.
coming on, man. It's always great to
Yeah,
have
man.
you.
Love
Viggs,
it.
working on
Always.
anything?
Still working on my stuff. It's been a busy week for me, so
It's been
I'm
great.
I'm deep into might and squirt practices right now. So
Ooh,
we'll get
intensity
there.
ramping up.
Yeah, season's coming up. We're getting our schedule next week.
What do you
so.
mean season's coming up? They're just starting?
Oh yeah, youth hockey.
Youth
We're
hockey.
just getting underway.
Minnesota's weird like that. They have the best
Yeah, and high
players, but
school doesn't start till
maybe
like
I
around
know. I
Thanksgiving,
mean,
right?
I talked to my friends in the Chicagoland area. They're full. They've played 10 games in the
Yeah, but
middle
that's
of
not high
September.
school, though, is it?
No, I know. I'm just saying youth hockey. I'm talking about
Community model. That's how we do it.
U10, and it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's so much. Anyways,
Oh, it's all good. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. Want to thank again Paul for joining us this week. It's always great to have him on. We're taking next week off, mostly because it's my birthday and I want the week off. So, and I'm turning 50. But wow. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll recap this, and then we'll talk a little bit about that Notre Dame series that will also happen in between. For those of you currently watching live, stay tuned for some overtime. For the rest, you will see next time on the GPL podcast. All right, Viggs. We can hear
nice.
the report.
Oh,
Mosaic IPA. Tell us about it.
It's fresh hop season for beer drinkers. The harvest has been collected. They take these beautiful fresh mosaic hops and then they make a India Pale Ale out of it. It's a great style, and now's the time to enjoy it.
There you go.
it's a good
There you
pour.
go.
It's a good pour right there.
Beer of the week right there.
Oh,
I love it. He always
delicious.
turns off the mute and you hear him go.
Gotta get that in there.
Oh,
Get the,
I really wanted a glass of wine with the chicken parm tonight, but I held off. So
yeah, I'm a wine drinker, or maybe even some milk with like pasta dinners. I'm still 12.
man.
Yeah. It's like the one meal I'll have milk with is spaghetti or,
creamy
sauce.
It
all that
really
kind of
does.
stuff. Yeah, that or wine for sure.
well, you got to
So,
either
I'm with you on
counteract
that.
the acid or you got to have the pairing acid to go with it. So beer and pasta
Is it
doesn't
this
go well.
bad, Viggs? 1 month from tonight, the famous Jupe Thanksgiving overtime.
People just
God,
love
it's
it,
almost
Jupe.
Thanksgiving already. It's almost Thanksgiving already. Wild.
It is a fun show.
So, Cappy, we have been on the ice for about a month already. We just haven't had any
Right.
games yet. So,
Right. But I'm telling you, these people, and you guys don't have AAA there, right, or whatever.
well, they
Kinda-
do, but it's just kind of like summer hockey. Like there's, I don't know if you don't like
It's
the
like a prep.
machine and the blades and stuff. Like those are kind of elite
It's
AAA
off season.
teams.
stuff.
What's that?
Elite
Yeah,
league type stuff. Yeah.
Well, there's
I
the
mean, it's
elite
just
league
where-
too, but
It's amazing now what's going on in youth hockey if you're playing like AAA or whatever. And Chicago, they have these like mini like academies. I go skate at this rink on Wednesdays where they have like these kids go to school and play hockey there, but there's not really a school. It's like they're at the rink, and these 20 to 40 kids of all ages. So like it's not the team. It's like if you're gonna skate, then you're gonna go to school, and then you're gonna have your team practice too. And that's every day. You're going on the ice twice a day. I think you get 1 day off a week, Mondays. I'm like, that is just a lot. And then we're talking about 10-year-olds, 10, 12, and then into high school. And these parents pay a ton of money for it. And I just like, man, these kids, I hope they truly love what they're doing. But it's a lot at such a young age.
And do they get asked whether or not it's okay for them to do this? It's like,
That's that's partially why I didn't want to get into coaching, is because you just see the crazy parents that make all their choices and get mad if they got stopwatches in the stands saying, "Oh, my kid played 7 seconds less than Johnny." you're not my kid's not you're trying to stunt my kid's progression and all this stuff. And I'm like, I've heard enough stories to be where no thanks. I don't need that in my life. Maybe if my nephew down the road wants, I'll help him out, but man, it's too much and I bet it's a lot better in Minnesota because it's not so crazy all year round. These people
It's crazy,
are doing it
but it's
all
not
year
as bad.
round.
It's
But
not as
I
bad.
feel like it. Yeah. Well, there's clearly you've been on the ice for a month. That's okay. That's September though. That's middle of
Yeah.
September. They played 10 games already at least and gone to 2 showcase tournaments and you know what I mean and all this stuff. It's a lot and
Yet
I
those
just hope these kids are
still kick
enjoying
those
it.
Chicago teams' asses usually when it comes to youth tournaments, right?
I mean, to an extent, Chicago hockey's got them. The last 10 years, it's elevated a lot. I mean, we talk about it. University of Illinois. You got
If they
Illinois.
only
I think the fourth. I think Illinois is fourth now or fifth in Division I hockey players. Like 80 some. I mean, University of Illinois, no brainer. Or Northwestern. Northwestern is just about to build an $800 million new football stadium. Okay, for a program that will never be good and people will never go to those games. There'll be Ohio State people there when they're there. Like in 2 weeks, I might go to that game at Northwestern, and it'll be 80% Ohio State people. But $800 million for a football stadium.
They could embrace hockey though, Viggs.
They
Walt
be a
Shaver
dynamite
was talking
program.
about this a couple years ago. He thought it was actually going to be Northwestern before Illinois.
Yeah. Well, because Northwestern has a lot of big donors. It's just
A lot of money there.
Athletic department is choosing to put it into football for whatever reason. Their practice facility for their football program is
Dynamite.
Unbelievable.
And,
right on the lake.
They've actually been to a Rose Bowl though, Viggs. They have actually had decent teams.
Yeah, but their coach also joked they wish they could play Iowa at 6 a.m. this weekend. So no one would have to watch and they could get it out of the way as soon as possible.
Yeah. So they're probably nearing $1 billion. If you calculate in that practice facility. I don't know how much that cost, but you're talking about $800 billion for this stadium. That's what I thought I read that correctly. It was 800.
I believe
it shows pictures. But that practice facility had to be $100 million. So you're closing in on $1 billion for that team. It'll help. Obviously, you get facilities like that and you can live near Chicago, but man, you can't throw I don't know. They've just renovated a basketball stadium. They could have made it baseball or hockey friendly. It is what it is, man. It's hard for you guys probably to comprehend because how big hockey is in Minnesota. There's just not enough. There's not enough of small people, and then there's not one big guy. To make that difference, that Terry Pagula, like we said before. So, but hockey would be immediately a powerhouse or, a contender within 3 years, just based on Illinois players alone that would want to play in Illinois.
Well, I think there's so many more players now than there were 20 years ago from across the country. Like the growth of American hockey the last 20 years has been huge. There's more players than spots right now.
Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. It's getting harder and harder to get a college, a scholarship or walk on or whatever. And that's why you're seeing these other programs now getting better and better, the AICs of the world. And you're seeing teams upset. I mean, look at Lindenwood, pretty good team for literally just put together. Even Long Island was pretty good, they're not getting blown out 12-2 every game. They are competing a little bit.
It almost feels like Lindenwood and AIC are doing a better job than like St. Thomas. I don't know what Blasey was doing with his roster, but these other teams seem like they're better there right out of the gate.
It's the coach.
He gets a little panicky too quick.
From, a person who's getting married to a former Miami Red Hawk. He is not well liked by these players. I mean, they hate him.
Well, and he's got a reputation. He's got a reputation. I mean, I know a lot of guys that played.
They went after his coaching reputation, but maybe not his people skills, the way he treats people. We'll have to see. Maybe he's turned that around. I don't know. That's just what I heard from his Miami past. So
Well, I think that's more important.
Facility issue, like you said, they might have to tear down some dorms or whatever just to get a rink. And boy, it's not a great area to do that. It's a residential area.
I think it's important. The relationships are more important now than the coaching. The coaching is, you need it, and you need the quality players. But I've talked to some people in hockey, whether it's the NHL or college, and it is wholeheartedly about having these guys mental in the right place to play and wanting them to play for you more than a lot of the X's and O's. You know, and we're talking NHL players too, because there's a lot of young guys that are coming in the NHL 21, 22, 18, 19, that it's becoming more and more about relationships than a lot of other things. So it's just the game's evolving. People are evolving, right? I think just the way everyone treats everybody, you know, you're seeing it all walks of the earth. So yeah, I think that's important. And you know, Rico's been around a long time. He's not an old guy, but he's been coaching since he was in his late 20s, you know, in the late 90s. So he's got to adapt. You know, that's what I would say to anybody is the game evolved. You got to evolve a little bit.
It's going to be interesting. For those of you who watched last week, you know, we have Brad Sloshman on, and he was like, you guys come on up for the podcast next year. Well, we actually talked to one of our guys who used to do stats with the stats crew at Minnesota during the final Frozen Four. He's now a deputy. He is the deputy athletic director at North Dakota. Eric Martinson. He says, come on up, guys. So Viggs, we have a goal.
Do it.
We're going to head up Thursday, have a show from the Ralph Thursday night before the big series next year.
NBA weekend. Make plans. Should be a fun one.
So they'll get us into the Ralph. They're more than accommodating. I've already been putting together how I'm going to do it in my head. Now we're going to broadcast live, probably like do a 7:00 show or something like that, because don't want to go too late, because Brad wants to take us out to dinner. But
Olive Garden, of course.
Olive Garden
with Maryland.
We'll get Mary to come with
Maryland.
us.
And you can only get soup, salad, and breadsticks, right?
True. So I just wanted to let people know that
that's awesome.
That off next year. That'll be fun. Kessler was on Spit and Chicklets. Any stories from Cappy on him and his 1 year at OSU?
Ryan Kessler.
I know the bench
too
press
many
one.
Stories.
The bench press one is a good one.
Press one. Terrible dancer. I got one that's maybe, I don't know. We're not on the regular. He was refusing to do any of the freshmen, kind of
carry the bags, that type of stuff, pick up the pucks.
Everything was a battle. So I'll just say that. But he was one of those guys for me early. I was a junior. He drove me crazy early in the year. And then once I got to know him and how he just early on, you think it's kind of like a thing with him, but then you just realize that's him. And he was a great player too. So I loved him by the end of the year. He grew on me, and I loved him at the end of the year, hit on and off the ice. So he totally changed me over the course of the year. I guess I don't have a specific story other than the weakling bench press one. But yeah, that's I got for you on Cass. He's an interesting guy. I wish he would have stayed another year, but he didn't. He just didn't. He liked college hockey. He just didn't like the school part too much. He wasn't into the all that kind of stuff. So,
Viggs, one thing I thought I'd say that we're seeing a lot recently in the last couple of years are a lot of former Gophers coming to the games at Mariucci. Just last weekend, I was in the elevator with Pat O'Leary. Separate time, I was in the elevator with Thomas Vanek. Leopold was there this past weekend. Craig Florestan was Reggie Berg, and a lot of guys. They're seeing a lot of these guys come back, whereas for a good 10 years, it was slim pickings.
I also think it has something to do with the age of these players now, too, though.
Mm-hmm.
They're at the age where their kids aren't toddlers. As I've kind of gone through that experience, that's pretty consuming for your life for that time. And now that they're old enough, but I do think that there was a gap of players before them who were that age who weren't coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, it's a good opportunity that Bob has made it known that he wants these players welcome around the rink and, to be part of the program. So I think that's been good, but there definitely was a gap of players before these guys, the 90s, like kind of that Chorsky era of player, that Dzik era, Scott Bell, like people from that era, I think had some friction with the program for a while, and that's done. It's a big happy family again. I even saw Brandon McManus at the rink on Saturday, and he was pumped to be there.
He's not playing hockey anymore.
He's been injured, and so he's hopefully
he just
cleared
finished
this
school
week.
last year, right?
Yeah, he played that year in Omaha.
Right.
And he actually did pretty well.
Yeah. So he's playing American League, or
he's going to be trying to get an American League deal here in probably about 2 weeks. I know Kyle Rao just signed his deal with Abbotsford. So I think the HL teams are still sorting through their rookie type players and figuring out, are these guys pros or not? And if they're not, they grab some veteran guys or, guys like Brandon who were on the shelf for a little bit because of medical stuff.
Well, but you were also saying he was just excited because North Dakota was in town. And even though he played was Omaha last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was definitely wanting to be out on the ice with the boys.
Yeah, he came up to me. He's like, hey, I did play in Omaha for a year, but I'm a gopher. He's like, don't worry. Like, I love my time here. I love this crowd. Love this school.
I think it's important. Like, I mean, you see it a lot at, the summer golf outing. I think is a big one to test your alumni. We had a great one this summer, one of our biggest showings, but you can see where a lot of guys are coming from in terms of the time they played. Like, in terms of, there's guys a lot of from 2000 to 2006 range, and then it falls off from, or, whatever the case may be for your school. And I think a lot of it has to do with, the coach, and then because the coach Rawls is really big into trying to get, he's really good with the alumni. And I think, Bob's smart. He knows that's important because I think the guys want to see that, even though they may not care like who it is, but they're eventually going to be that. I mean, guys think about that a little bit. So it's you can tell, maybe a guy didn't show up for a while because the coach he played for didn't play him and he got screwed over, right? Everyone has a couple of those guys in every, guy, I got screwed in college. And, he's your buddy, but you're like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. And you might not think that much differently about the coach in terms of what he does, but you're still more happy to be around your buddies. You want to come back and see all the guys, and you want to see the program do well. You want to, help donate so it gets better. If I could donate, I'd give them a hockey rink if I had that kind of money. But you know what I mean? Like, it's important, and that's good to hear for Minnesota. I mean, a lot of those guys play their little kid. They bring their 6-year-old kids, and they got their Gopher jersey on. Like, hey, I used to skate out there. Now he's looking up, like, that's kind of cool. Like a guy like Thomas Vanek has kids, right, that are probably, in the youth
just in that
Bantam
high school right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, they're older. I mean,
they're older, yeah.
That's pretty. If he's in that 14, 15 range, that's even bigger.
And Vanek was heading down to that alumni room because that's where he wanted to go. One thing that was built specifically for them. So good for him. It was after that first period when they weren't shooting much, and I'm like, can we switch you out there for a little bit because we know you'll shoot. He's like, I don't know what's going on. They just, because like somebody like Brodzinski's like, just let the kid shoot.
Right.
And that's Thomas Vanek.
I will say on Brodzinski, I thought he made some smart veteran plays, though, in the game where he wasn't just shooting. He was making possession plays, which we have not seen him do. Sometimes you'd see him at the hash along the wall in the zone, just fire a puck on net, and the goalie just freeze it, and there's a draw. I saw him a couple times make plays where he'd start the cycle on the wall and then try to create an offense which I think is a good, important step for him and something that some of those guys need to learn to do. Because a shot from the wall by the hash mark at Mariucci is not a great shot. It's just not. You're a long ways away from the net.
There's only one guy
at the end of the game on Saturday night. You had Brodzinski was out there too long.
Well, he was out there. He passed up 2 chances to get off. But Cappy, you were going to say something about there's a player who could shoot from the hash mark along the wall.
There's only one guy that I wouldn't care where he shoots from. That's Snuggerud. The puck comes off his stick, just different. True. There's not many guys like you see that, right, from a few guys here and there. That puck just comes off his stick, just a little bit different from everyone else. And I would let him shoot from anywhere. But yeah. I mean, within reason. I want him shooting from center ice, but it's hard, right? Because you just said you guys are not contradicting, but you're one guy's saying stop shooting, the other guy's like, we're not shooting, we don't have any shots. Put Brodzinski out there, he'll shoot every shot.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we've seen even Moskva said this. He's like, Brodzinski's got a great shot. I mean, he really does. And sometimes he gives up a really good scoring chance to try to make a play.
Sure.
That's just kind of where I'm coming from, Viggs.
Here's the deal with Brodzinski. In the shooting room or in a shooting drill, he has got one of the best shots on the team. In a game, Snuggerud's shot is super dangerous. Just because the way that he gets the puck off and the shots that he takes, they just apply differently in the game. And so I don't know exactly what the answer is to unlock Brodzinski. I think he got hurt by going right from high school basically to the college game. Yeah. I think that probably hurt his development a little bit. And just the way the team has been the last couple of years and the line mates he had, I think things just got a little stunted there. And it's too bad for him because he does have some skills.
Oh, he can shoot the puck. I mean, he's in the top echelon in that range. But like I said, Snuggerud just a little different. With Brodzinski, just sometimes disappears on you. From my aspect, where I don't see every minute of their games, but I did 4 or 6 games last year, and you'd forget he's out there sometimes, and that happens with a lot of players. You might be right, and it's funny. If he would have went to juniors, what if, right? You'll never know, right? You'll never know that. But with Minnesota, they just have the depth of guys, and it's like, okay, this guy's playing better tonight. Okay, he's going in more. He's going to get the minutes. There's only not too many forwards on Minnesota. Logan Cooley, Nyes, Snuggerud are going to play no matter what. The other guys are fighting for those. Instead of getting 10 minutes, they're getting 15 minutes. And then the other guy, Nevers, is better. And then Pitlick and Huglin are top. It's like you're battling for ice time every night. And you'd think that would maybe push a guy to try to find that consistency more. And maybe he's just fighting it. And he could play another year, right? Maybe that might help. I don't know. But yeah, he just, he kind of disappears a little bit sometimes.
What were you seeing in practice today, Viggs? Did you get a chance to see practice? And, you mentioned that there's probably going to be some changes in the lines. You saw that last week, but you're always kind of tentative just because things always get switched up.
Yeah, I mean, today was mostly special teams. They did a ton of penalty kill and power play. It was a very heavy penalty kill power play and then shooting drills. That was the big focus. Last week, the big focus was battle. So a lot of small area games where it's just like the coaches are holding the puck and the players are just, cross-checking each other. And I'm just kind of scoffing at it going, okay, Bob, throw the puck in there. What are you doing? And seriously, though, during the game, there are a lot of situations that played out like that, where there was a cycle or there's a play up high and the puck just took a long time to get to the net. So maybe what Bob is telling me with this is that he's expecting a lot of special teams this weekend. Well, they need to work on their penalty kill because they're slow up top with some of their transitions. I think they're slow, coming down to support the middle of the ice when they get beat with a puck that transitions down low to the dot or bottom of the circle. They don't close off those passing lanes. So I think that's a big emphasis. And then 2, winning a draw and getting set up in the neutral zone to try to disrupt the power play from setting up. I think those are going to be big things for them.
Yeah, that will be, because just kind of watching highlights of the Buckeyes goals on the power, but Lori's shooting the puck a little more, which I think is maybe opening up, or he's being a threat to shoot. I don't think he was a threat to shoot enough last year, and it's opening up. Ooh, mid-story crack. Mid-story crack, solid. I think that cross ice pass, I think where they had two left-handed shots on the wings, or on the circles, and the Halliday and Wise, and they're both shooting capabilities, and that cross ice pass through that seam, right? You're talking about not getting back down. That could be somewhere that the Gophers are probably watching video. Steve, that's another storyline we didn't talk about, is the coaching with Steve Miller now on the Gophers bench. He's probably going to have a few things to know, and then obviously the Buckeyes know some of Steve Killer's tendencies and his coaching of what he's trying to do on their special teams. So it'll be interesting kind of chess match with the coach. And I was a little worried, when they lose Killer. Killer has been great wherever he goes, and I was a little worried, but they got Luke Strand who just won a USHL championship as a head coach in the USHL. And I knew Luke a little bit at Wisconsin. I was pretty happy with that get to kind of harshen the blow, so to speak, of losing Killer, because that was like, oh man, he's so good, but he doesn't like staying anywhere for long. I don't see him being at Minnesota more than 5 years. It's just kind of his MO. He likes kind of what's next, what's the new, and he doesn't want to be a head coach. Maybe I've never asked him that. I probably should have, but
I kind of asked him about it.
Head coach.
I got a little sit down with him earlier this year, and he basically said, I don't like to think about that. I just want to be focused where I'm at. And if an opportunity pops up, then that's something I'll pursue. But it's not something he's actively pursuing.
Okay, but how has the team not reached out to him then?
I think he has gotten some. It's got to be a right fit. I mean, my
so he wants to go from zero to big time. Like he doesn't want to start at. I'm not going to name a school, but you know what I mean.
I could see him being at Minnesota when Bob steps away. If this goes well the next 4 years,
yeah. Do you think Bob? Because Bob, I remember when he got the job, he said this is like a 5-year thing. Like I'm the guy to kind of. He didn't seem like he was in it for the 10 to 15 years. I remember his press conference a little bit, and he said he wasn't going to be there for a long, long time. But do you think that things that happened have changed maybe his mentality with that kind of stuff?
I think it's a 10-year thing.
I guess personally, having a big thing happen.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not probably a question you asked, but I had that happen in my life at one point, and my mentality changed on some things for sure. So, and I think it's, maybe it's a good thing too. Like, to like focus on in your life or whatever. So, yeah, he might be a killer. I think he'd be a great head coach. He knows his stuff. I think he's a funny guy. I think he'd be good with the players.
He's a really good recruiter.
Unreal.
He's unreal. I mean, look at what Minnesota recruiting's been like the last 3 months. They're killing it.
And he doesn't. That's the thing. He doesn't even have to work that hard to do that there. To be honest, let's be honest. I mean, he's not recruiting at Little Sisters of the Poor. I mean, this is University of Minnesota, who's number one, and look what they've been doing. So I'm sure.
But what's interesting is they have not. They had a tough time recruiting for a little while.
1,000%.
They were not doing great. Even Bob's first couple of years, it was still kind of like touch and go. People were like, "Well, what's it going to be like?"
People were waiting to see, and they're clearly seeing the success. And so now, you don't want to say, "Oh, it's a well-oiled machine. Don't have to worry," because that's when you slip. But I'm sure Killer's a little surprised how, maybe more people are coming to him than him going to them a little, a little bit, which, I'm sure he's like, man, this is a different challenge, right? This is kind of cool. I got to do it in a different way. I'm sure he sees that as a challenge. He'll ramble on with you forever. I talk a lot. That guy, but it's fun. He's fun to listen to. You know what I mean? You don't feel like it's you're listening. You're like at the edge of your seat, like, what's he going to say next?
Well, some things that we heard interesting this weekend after the Saturday game, we were talking with Schlossman again. He was talking about what was over the past summer that the Ralph put in another $5 million of renovations in the guts, and one of them it was it a cycling room.
It's like a hyperbolic chamber
closes
so you
off
can
as hyperbolic,
like a recovery type of thing.
Yeah.
/ training, so you can bike at
Sure.
10,000 feet. You can get on exercise bikes, and they change the atmosphere or whatever, the pressure.
I mean, the North Dakota's the Alabama, Ohio State of football. They bring in the money, so they
do.
spend it on that program.
Well, the school's not spending that money, is it? I mean, a lot of it's just kind of, isn't it? A lot of the donations from the Ralph Eggleston.
I'm sure that's what I'm sure too.
I'm
sure they also have donors too. I'm sure they have a lot of alumni that aren't.
Well, they
happy
have all
to
that
donate.
Champions Club stuff, where to be a season ticket holder and get priority for their game in Vegas this year, you have to donate like $1,000, $5,000 to get priority. They know how to work the system,
but it isn't like the school having to do a lot of that fund.
No, it's funds from athletics.
Yes,
like it's not taxpayer money. As someone was chirping me on Twitter, they're like, "Yeah, good thing that North Dakota fan threw that $350 stick back on the ice, so Minnesota doesn't have to spend another $350 of my taxpayer money." Ted, that is not your taxpayer money. That is 5 tickets paid for that stick. That Rhett sells with his flair on the ice.
Trolling at its finest.
Yeah,
that weekend.
What do you think of it's been interesting, the results so far with the NCHC and the Big Ten and
just St. Cloud's been strong for the NCHC.
Where's North Dakota? Like, what did you think of them?
I did not see I did not see the offensive talent that I'm used to seeing from North Dakota. When like a freshman Blake
pressure,
is their power play, when he's their power play pivot, the threat on the power play where the power play runs through that, you're like, what? They have a freshman basically running their power play on the off wing. Very surprising. I don't think they have the defensemen that they typically have that are dynamic puck movers. They've got a bunch of big physical defensemen. So it's not your typical North Dakota team to me, where they have those really skilled players. So it's a little down. UMD, I think they're in a little bit of a transition because I don't think their goaltending is good. I think they've got some undisciplined players. I don't think they have the leadership back. Denver's going to be fine. I think Denver's going to be okay.
Oh, Denver's going to be good. And I think Western will be in there. But you guys have a
revenge game this weekend? Isn't it Western and Michigan?
Yes, home and home. Friday at Yost, Saturday so it'll be interesting. But a lot of those players
be on BTN Plus, won't it? If it's at Michigan,
yes,
it'll be on BTN
Plus. Friday's game will be on BTN Plus. Saturday will maybe be on NCHC TV if you have that one or whatever. NCHC.com or whatever. I got Ben Holden's account. I think I still got it. I think I still got it. I'll have to text him and make sure I got it.
Okay, I saw
if he still has it.
I just want to tell Corey, so the Gophers need a video screen of the Ralph's quality. They actually are pretty maxed out at Mariucci because of the weight bearing of the roof to be able to hold something like that up. Even with the new technology with lighter materials, even the quote new scoreboard we have from replace the old one was right at the limit that the roof could accommodate. So I wouldn't expect something bigger unless they had bigger, lighter type of material. So sorry, Corey, it's just probably not in the cards for a while.
Yeah, you have that bottom thing filled out. You were talking about Viggs. I think, isn't that going to be a revenue builder? because that's going to be like that's a high rollers type. Maybe have a
Like
couple
a
high rollers areas,
premium
right?
seating
Yeah,
experience.
maybe get some beer down there, right? Like that food and beer type of thing. Going to pay $100
Separate
or
entrance.
whatever.
Separate
Maybe,
entrance,
yeah.
probably.
I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Do that. People that want it will pay, and they'll get donated by fan, that kind of stuff. I think it's a good way to sneak in some more revenue, and you can still have the same atmosphere coming from the top and the students. So
Most schools are not having trouble selling their premium seats. People want a premium experience.
and then that's and that's even a different experience, right? That's that's like a suite almost. And then you're right on the players are right in front of you.
Yeah.
Half the time you're not going to see the game great, but it's more about the enjoyment of the atmosphere and the extra, what you're doing right now, right there, all that kind of stuff. So you like Notre Dame, huh? I just haven't seen them yet. I don't know what they have. So many new guys. I'm like, I don't know who half of them are. I guess I'm about to get on Peacock here soon. But I don't know. Goaltending?
I like Notre Dame.
I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to be there. I think those four, and I think even Penn State. Well, Penn State hasn't played anybody yet, but they got that. They
Per
got
usual.
a couple. They haven't, but you know what? They got, and it's all going to come down to goaltending for them. But they got that kid from Tour Linden that's got I think he had 20 goals last year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, I was talking to Brian Tripp about him, the radio voice of Penn State, and I'm like, okay, because they pretty much most everyone back, and then they added him and this Ashton Calder guy that's a pretty solid guy. So I mean, this could be a year for 5 teams.
Well, I think definitely the way the pairwise is going to play out based on how the Big Ten's doing and on conference and how NCHC is doing, it is that kind of year.
And they're beating all those teams, so you got a shot. And I mean, Michigan State's probably going to be okay. I don't. You know what? You make that face. You make that face. But they're not gonna win 15 games. But they lost those games last year and the year before against Long Island. They would have lost one of those games. So I'm not saying they're going to be good, but they're going to be a little harder to beat this year. They're going to win more than 10 games, probably.
You heard
but
it.
Not much more.
They're going to win more than 10 games.
What do they have? 5 already? No, I don't know. And then Wisconsin, I don't know is Duluth?
What happened?
What's going on there?
Is Duluth just that bad?
Well, I heard Mo played well, and I think that was a big difference maker in that series as he played really well. And I don't think UMD's got a lot of scoring right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been a thing that Scott Sandelin sometimes struggles with, is like he doesn't get enough offense recruiting because he wants so much character. He prioritizes that.
Really great defensive men.
Yeah, great defensive players.
So they kind of made up for that when they had their strong years.
And they lost Brett Larson.
Yeah.
So their recruiting's
a
little
Derek
off.
Plant? Is it Derek Plant too? Is that right? Colby Coleman was telling me that he went to BU, I think.
No.
Is that right or wrong?
One of the Plants.
Derek Plant? Am I wrong?
Isn't he the one who announced he announced he was going to Duluth with the picture of him as a kid?
Yeah, they've got a Plant.
He won the national title?
Yeah.
I think it was.
But they never scored. These last 4 or 5 years, they've never scored. They went 2-1. You know what I mean? They just grind you to the bone, and they scored. They beat you 2-1, 3-2.
A lot of goon play last weekend. Well, obviously.
Yeah, that Kaiser hit
was brutal.
Did you guys see the ice level one? I think Todd
from the fan
or TikToked it out. I thought it through Todd's. Yeah. Yeesh. Did he get suspended for that?
Yep.
Kaiser did?
Yeah.
Okay, because there were a couple hits, right? I don't know, man. That was tough. But
any thoughts?
It's hot college.
Minnesota hockey historical type table books for you'd recommend, Viggs? TK.
Gopher Hockey by the Goldie Gopher were by Ross Bernstein. That was my one. I don't know. I think I gotta try to put one together for TK at some point here.
Coffee table book about coffee tables. Come on, I'm a old Seinfeld fan,
Yep.
so I just had to throw that in there. You throw coffee tables out there, I'm going to say that one.
I'll get some photos from Jim Rosewold and I'll write
That'd be
some stuff
sweet.
and we
Hey,
put
Nate,
together a little book.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm sure Jim's got
Kaiser
photos of
got one
everything.
game. Howard got 2 games. So one of them
Okay.
one was called during the game, one wasn't. I can't remember.
The Howard was the one during the game. I think the Kaiser one was behind
Kaiser
the
was
play and
not
no one really
called.
saw it.
Gotcha.
Well, it was weird. It looked almost like a natural just turnaround. I think he played it that like he's like, I'm gonna hit this guy, but I'm gonna make it look like I didn't, or like I was just turning around.
It's a hockey play.
Yeah, I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he's a good player, and maybe probably frustration of what was going on and what has been going on. They're not. If you think about it, if you're a junior or senior at UMD, you don't know losing. You don't losing 3 in a row, 4 in a row, especially at home to a team that nobody thought hadn't won a game yet. They're 0-4. So, I do think
Wisconsin's still going to be an interesting story where they go because, like last time, Viggs, they got rid of the assistant coach, and they didn't follow it up, and he was out. They're kind of doing the same thing this time. It looks like so. He needs to do something this year.
Their team is similar to last year, except for they have like the one more line of pretty good young players. Stramel, Lucius, and and then the transfer in from Quinnipiac, Smilanek, I think is his name. But it's discipline for them. If they can stay disciplined, they'll be in games. Last year was unbelievable. The dumb penalties they would take and the unbelievable. And then they just kept playing. Like there was no Pitlick where, you didn't even get a penalty, but you threw your stick into the stands. You're stapled to the bench. There was none of that going on. So, an older guy did it. So a young guy would see it, say, there's not going to be any ramifications for me if that guy didn't, get any recourse. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be different this year. And, I think they'll, maybe last week I give them a little confidence. Big Ten, I think, compared to last year, it's going to be a way more competitive from top to bottom. It's not going to be so that gap. That gap was ridiculous last year between the 4 and 3 in terms of points in the standings. I don't think we'll see that again.
Well, just the quality of play too between the top and the bottom is just like, how are these teams even going to win? Any games?
Sure. Yeah. It'll be. I think it's going to be fun. You were worried with Michigan losing all those guys, right? Like the hype of it. But Minnesota guys came back, and then, Michigan's got a guy that's got 15 points in 6 games, or is it 12? On CHN, he's got 15 points. On USCHO, he's got 12.
I bet it's got that exhibition counting on one and not the other. Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I follow CHN more because it's just easy. Well, I don't follow it by like the rule. I just look at it more because it's so easy to app. Boom, boom, boom.
The app is what they've had problems with, though.
Sure. So I don't know.
Even the scoreboard, because like GPL, we get our scoreboard from a web widget from CHN, and that web widget tends to be more accurate and up to date than their actual app.
Well, I guess if I wanted to know, all I could do is text Fred, and Fred would tell me in about 8 seconds. And that's not a knock. He just, he's in, either way, at worst, Fantilli's got 2 points a game as a just turning 18-year-old. I don't know, like 2 weeks ago or something like that. He's the late 18-year-old. That's why he's not drafted yet. So I think they'll be okay. Michigan will be there. I think if they get, they got to get that young guy back he hasn't played yet. The other first rounder from last year, Frank Nazar.
Samskevich?
Isn't he out till like February?
Nazar. Well, Samskevich is there. It's Nazar is the guy.
Oh, yeah.
Could be till February.
Yeah.
I saw they got Edwards back, so that kind of gives them 3 with him, Hughes, and Truscott, and then the freshman. You got a pretty good top 4 there on D. Yeah, so they're just young, but they'll be fun. And then Portillo back there.
Are you surprised Minnesota stayed number 1 after losing 2 of their last 3?
I mean, they dominated the games. And
they did.
people watch the games, I think, who vote. Like they were watching that series because it's such a fun one to watch. So I think people
well, not all of it, but most.
yeah, so they kind of got the takeaway that Minnesota is legit. And I think a lot of the other top teams didn't do so well, so it made it easy to
except
keep
for
them
St.
there.
Cloud, yeah, they're undefeated. So,
But I don't know.
St. Cloud is still coming. I think if they did it again next week and say the split that we all kind of maybe or somewhat predicted happens, who St. Cloud got this week, I don't know, but
well, how about that January series against St. Cloud? It's going to be pretty big. They might want some of those junior guys back, Vigs.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be possible that they could be back. So
true, because the championship game is a Wednesday,
and then they play the weekend. Yeah, and it's
is that a home and home,
North
or
America.
is that all?
Yep,
it's a home and home again. Ooh, let's have some more drama like 2 years ago with the whole penalty not called and all that fun stuff.
Dive.
And then was it Pat on the call with that game, the TV game up there at St. Cloud?
Yeah, it was Pat and Jim Rich.
Oh, that was funny.
No, it was Parrish. It was Parrish and Rich.
Was it Parrish? Yes,
it was
you're right.
Parrish
it
and
wasn't Pat.
Rich.
It wasn't Pat.
It wasn't
right
Pat.
because it was a St. Cloud. Yeah.
But the radio call from Wally was just as good. He's like, "Oh, how the refs blew it."
I'm all for that. I love hearing that stuff. It's just fun. It's just real. It's real. That's just great. I love it. So that'll be a good one. Minnesota are they kind of locked in? Their schedule's never going to change, right? In terms of rotating through.
Like they'll try to take a trip out west every once in a while and take a trip out east, but for the most part, Bob is pretty like we're going to play the Minnesota
at least
schools.
2 series, at least, right?
Yeah, they're going to rotate through everybody in the state. Eventually, St. Thomas is going to get in there too.
Right. So that strength of schedule is always going to be there. The non-conference is going to be.
The only thing is, like we'd spoken about, is like next year is the end of the North Dakota deal. And then there's at least 1 year off before they could even start another deal, right, Viggs?
No, they could start up again after the 1
I heard
year.
that they were already full. Like North
Dakota's full the next year.
The next year's, but
next year
so
the one after
year off. Yes,
the year off, North Dakota's full, but the year after they could figure it out.
Correct. Yes.
So like, there's no way that they're just going to keep it going, but they're going to have to take 1 year off.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Duluth. Like they're just taking the 1 year off and then they'll be back.
Or you just do the one game in Vegas, Gophers in the T-Mobile Center. I can't wait for that Frozen Four to be in Vegas. You guys, Gophers better make it that year so I can go again. Hey, Tampa this year. That's not a bad one either.
How far are you from Tampa?
About an hour south of Tampa. But I'm telling you, it was one of the first Frozen Fours I covered. It was the first Tampa one. You guys were there. BC ended up winning that. I'm telling you, Tampa has done the best job of hosting a Frozen Four. That I've been to Boston, I've been to Minnesota, I've been to Chicago, and Tampa. Can't remember a few others maybe, but best at like kind of making it the event for the city.
Yes, because when I remember flying into Tampa that week, this was the first one, 2012.
Yep.
I got off the plane. There were banners all over the airport talking about the Frozen Four. I'm like,
you were shocked, right?
I really was. And you go downtown, you drive downtown to get to the rink from the kind of the main highways, and there's banners going across the streets talking about this thing. They do,
and then
like Steve just says they do an amazing job. And Wally said they've really built up that area down by the arena now. There's tons of
I was down there.
It's not like a big
for a playoff game.
Like it was, yes. So it's
I was down there for the playoff game last year, and it's great. And then it's you. And the other thing is, and everybody does it. Like you see jerseys from all over the country, but if you're a North Dakota fan or a Gopher fan, and you buy your tickets, your plane tickets, your tickets for it, you're like, and the Gophers get upset, don't make it, or North Dakota, you're still going to go. It's a vacation. Yes. You're going to Tampa. It's a great fun event. And then you have the great weather. They have the big outdoor area right in front of the arena. That's like kind of a party district that you can have a beer outside. And it's 82 degrees and okay, I'll get into the hockey too. But I mean, it's just I'm going to be there probably one way or the other.
Well, it's so nice. Talking with Wally Shaver, he says he wants to do the Hobie Baker or try to get something done outdoors there.
Yeah, so when I did this in the 2012 when it was NCAA.com, and we went and covered the Hobie Baker, and it was at the Offutt Air Force Base. Now I'm not sure what they did in 2017, was it, or 16? The second one, but there's an Army Air Force Base where we did that first one. But yeah, outdoors was it? Oh yeah, Offutt is Omaha. McDill.
Yeah, I think
it was at the Air Force.
Right
it
there.
was at their Air Force. My bad. It's not Offutt.
No,
I
you're
don't
fine.
know where I got Offutt in my head. But it's Air Force Base, maybe a 15 or 20-minute drive. And I remember we had to get like security clearance going there. Like we're on a bus. We were on the media bus. We all had to like give our licenses. And it was a little different than just going to the auditorium down the street. But yes, I'm all for that. You want to send that to the NCAA to get that done on that
That's
Friday
he's
afternoon.
trying to get things arranged. And obviously there's a lot of things with that with TV.
Maybe the Richter Award at least. Get one of them
He's
done
like,
outside.
He wants to do it outside. So,
hey, you got my vote.
So where are you? So you in like the Fort Myers area, or?
No, I'm literally I'm an hour between.
So
Tampa, Fort Myers, Sarasota.
For you?
Got lucky, man.
Okay, that's
just a lot of trees down when I got here. I got here a week after it, and just got lucky. Like a palm tree out front had to get cut because it got bent too far. Yeah. And then there's a lot of I got to take a picture there's a bike trail from here, and there's this huge tree that literally is pulled out of the ground. There's grass, like the yard is around, like it's just completely
grass,
all the roots. You can see the roots that would be 20 feet down and are pulled up. I got to take a picture of it. It's surreal. Yeah, we got very lucky because probably, 25, 30 miles south of us was the start of the really bad area. So, yeah, man, that whole that Fort Myers and Sanibel Island, it's destroyed. So very, very, very lucky that way.
Yeah, Bob's got a lot of family that they're in the Key West area, and it just
they got lucky.
Hammered.
They got lucky. They didn't get
they still got hammered.
Oh yeah.
Because it did go right. It did crush the Keys. Yep.
Yeah.
Just the wind didn't get like the rain is the wind. They were looking at boats that were, 100 yards inland that like were stuck upside down once the water drained. And you're like, how do we get this thing back to they have to bring cranes in to like get it out. And it's funny and sad because these people are losing their businesses or their whole homes were gone. So.
Glad your place
very, very lucky.
Pretty much.
Appreciate it. Yeah, very lucky. So very happy that you're watching. I was sitting at home and you're like watching this thing soar. I'm like, well, it looks like it's the worst part, but you don't know exactly which is the worst part of the spinning tunnel. So
yeah. My dad lived in Tampa the last 20, 30 years of his life, and he says the biggest fear Tampa always had was like a day before they still thought it might go up a little further north before it went in. And if you have the right winds going into the bay, he says it would just be devastating. Turns out they ended up having the opposite wind. So a lot of the water came out of the bay, which is strange.
Yeah.
He says that's the biggest fear Tampa because Tampa's the largest kind of city that hasn't been really hit. That is still very vulnerable.
Yeah, and you don't want to I don't want to diminish that, all those people to the south here because there's a lot of people, but you're talking millions of people.
And that's twice they got hit too.
And it's not just Tampa, it's St. Pete. St. Pete is a whole separate city. You got two cities there on a bay that if that would have stayed going up that high and been the opposite of what, your dad was, I don't know what the damage would have been up there. And so like I said, don't want to diminish. I mean, what's going on in the South is not good, but you're talking about probably hundreds of thousands at least of more people and losing homes and all that kind of stuff.
Well, a million people live on the peninsula there, St. Petersburg, Clearwater. That's more than a million. That's a lot of people.
And you got all that beach stuff. There's so many beach and that's just a sitting duck on that. So
Tampa's gotten lucky. I will say that.
The Frozen Four will go off without a hitch. Try to get there if you can. Probably going to see Minnesota there. I mean, just
I would. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, last year, you just never know from year to year. It's crazy. But
It is true.
I like the Big Ten this year. We'll see.
Cabby, who are your picks for the Frozen Four? Minnesota, Denver.
Well, where are the regionals this year? No Loveland this year, right?
It's
Is it Fargo?
It's Fargo. It might
Yeah.
be Allentown again.
Again, are the two
Well,
West and Midwest?
remember, they're going away from using directions. It's like
whatever.
the Fargo regional.
Okay, Allentown, and then
It's
you have
like
the
Veeks
two.
anyone, so I'll get to it.
Then you have the two out east, which will be either Bridgeport, Manchester, Providence.
Bridgeport and Manchester.
There you go. I mean, it's like a five city rotation. Well, I don't know if Denver is going to make it. They're not going to be playing in Colorado, so that's going to be. I'm going to say no to Denver this year. I like Quinnipiac, man. We'll see. We'll see.
Fossman likes them a lot too.
He does.
He says they're his number one team.
Yeah, I think they didn't lose a ton last year, and they still got the goalie. I don't know. I haven't seen enough, even with the Big Ten. I haven't seen Notre Dame play an ounce yet, and I don't know what they have. Like Slaggert hasn't done anything yet. I don't know if he's ever going to be a big college scorer. I think his game.
Well, I don't think anyone on that team will ever be a big time scorer. Like that's not the way they play. They don't play that way. Like they're really tough to beat, but they're never going to be where they have leading scorers on their team.
Yeah, and so they could easily make the Frozen Four because they play well in the NCAA tournament.
Scott Bell used to say when he recruited against Notre Dame, he's like, "If you want to learn to play defense, that is the school for you."
Right.
That was his recruiting pitch.
Yeah, against them, right, or is for them?
Yeah, whatever. If you want to learn to play defense, you should go play for them. But
yeah,
if you don't want to, if you want to play offense,
what do you think about the series coming up, Viggs, with Notre Dame coming here?
I think that's
2 weeks.
Yeah, I think this will be a big test to see where the Big Ten's at, how Minnesota and Ohio State play, and how Minnesota and Notre Dame play. I think it's going to be
Notre Dame always does well.
Reality check.
Split here.
Mm-hmm.
They swept them a couple of years ago, didn't they?
Yeah,
it was a shocking sweep. I think like 3 years ago. I want to say.
Yeah, because Russo is buddy with the Slaggert family, and so he was rubbing it in all Minnesota face.
Slaggert family's great, man. Andy's an awesome guy. When I see him around hockey, that's been at Notre Dame since I was playing or before that. And then they got a third one coming. I think he'll be at Notre Dame next year.
Because he's with the ND right now.
He's a 17. He's a 17. He's going to Notre. I think they might play together 1 year if Landon stays. And the Slaggerts are known for staying in college, so we'll see. But with Portillo and Dobish, man, those guys, they can go to a Frozen Four. Those teams easily. Mm-hmm. Michigan's got more of the talent, young, but him and those two guys are good. Year more. I love that. I love Portillo came back. I love that. I love these guys coming back, and they're not in some huge hurry to go sit in the AHL and be in college, have fun, do well, be more prepared.
Is that number 3, Viggs?
No. I'm sticking with you. That's Cappy slapping something over there.
Oh, that was my computer bouncing a little.
Yeah.
So sorry, guys.
Knocking his computer around.
Yeah, I got excited, but yeah, we'll see. Frozen Four, man. You can't tell. I can't tell you that in October.
It's got to be all in for Minnesota though, because they're going to lose guys next year. I mean, we already know that half their defense is going to be gone.
Sure.
Yes, they've got young guys coming in to replace them. Snuggerud, Cooley, who knows who else?
Well, you'd hope they maybe stay. Maybe not Cooley. Cooley, what's he in a hurry to go there?
You got a Nye's leaving. I mean,
you never know. It all kind of depends on how the year goes. I mean, this point of the season, I think Cooley is going to need some more seasoning.
Yeah,
I don't think he's ready to jump right to the NHL. That I feel like for guys like that should be the goal. Yeah,
you get to play at his home rink this year. Later on, his future home rink.
That's
going to be odd. right? That's where are they going there in
Has there
December?
been any TV broadcasts of Arizona there yet?
I haven't seen one.
I think. Oh no, it's on the Pac-10. It's on the Pac-12.
No.
network.
I mean, like the Coyotes. Whatever.
Oh,
I haven't.
you mean their TV's probably on Fox Arizona or Bally's, whatever.
I wonder if I'll have to pay attention to see if there's any.
Well, if you have ESPN Plus, you'll be able to watch them.
Yeah,
So
Right.
that's one thing.
So is there any way? So if you don't have is there any way to get the Pac-12 network, or like how could Minneapolis pick up a feed of that somehow or pay for that?
when the Gophers played Colorado in football, there was
Mhm.
no way to get it other
It
than
was on Pac-12.
it was on Pac-12. So you had to get like Fubo TV to get the game.
I
Because
think that's what's
Pac-12
gonna
isn't
happen.
on all the streaming networks either. So it's
Right.
a weird
So if-
it's a weird one.
Right. So if Bally's Arizona would be doing the games, then it's an easy
Then
one,
Bally's
right?
to pick it up here. Yes.
Yep.
Right. So Pac-12, Big Ten. I wonder they don't have any kind. Who owns Pac-12? Is
I think
it's
Pac-12
not Fox,
does.
is it?
I think
Okay,
it's
so if it's
Pac-12.
not Fox
It's not
it's
like
not
Big Ten
Fox
Network
or
where Fox has
ESPN.
the majority. It's not
or
like that.
ESPN with SEC. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know how that works, but I'm pretty sure I saw Pac-12 Network when I was looking at their schedule.
I'll just stream the
United
audio.
States.
That's fine with me.
I'll bite the bullet. I'll sign up for some sort of package. I do it for the NCHC games. I do it for whatever. I'm gonna watch
should just
somehow.
Or you should
You know,
just
the
go.
NCHC is not cheap.
I should just go. Hey,
I would
spouse.
go
I'm just gonna fly down to Arizona for a bit. You got the kids, right? Talk to my
I'm
assistant
working.
coaches. You guys will be fine.
I'm
I'm working.
working.
Yeah. Side hustle.
Ooh, what's this? Not sure who. Never seen this person in the chat before. But then his second comment, he gets it to Xfinity. It is an HD though, which stresses how bad it is.
I mean, the Pac-12 when I watched the Colorado football game was HD. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll
I
see.
think he's just saying the Xfinity they don't put out an HD channel. It's kind of curious why any provider would put out a non-HD channel these days.
It's gonna be interesting next year when the TV contracts change, because next year NBC will have a contract with the Big Ten. So I'm gonna be poking around as how much will be on Peacock, other than it won't have to be Notre Dame. It could be everybody. And Peacock's a free stream to a certain amount, right?
They include it with
or
they
it was
bundle it with a lot
$5
of
or
their stuff.
something.
It's
It is
pretty cheap.
A lot of people have
like,
Peacock.
those Notre Dame streams are high quality. The video
so
is great.
It'll be interesting to see. I think they might. I'm hoping, for my selfish reasons and Big Ten reasons, that they do a ton of hockey, college hockey, and why wouldn't they?
I think.
guess.
Well, we've been
So
talking
we'll
about it for
see.
a while. Streaming's going to be the way it goes, and in fact, I think it's going to be the way a lot of networks are going. I mean, look at the Major League Soccer.
Yeah,
it's all Apple TV Apple TV Plus, or whatever next year.
Right.
These broadcast networks.
How about Notre Dame?
All still king, but something's going to happen where it's just going to keep pushing.
How about Notre Dame's game wasn't on TV last week? Notre Dame's football game was on Peacock last week. Their game was on Peacock last week against UNLV. I think it was like a test run, like, okay, this is UNLV, middle of the season. It was not on TV. It was on Peacock. Because I'm looking here. I was bored in the afternoon. I'm like, okay, where's NBC? Notre Dame, who are they playing today? And it was like figure skating was on Notre Dame, on NBC 2:30. And so I scrolled ahead. Their game wasn't at night. Mm-hmm. So then I went to ESPN app, and it said Notre Dame, and it's Notre Dame, UNLV, and then it shows little TV who's on, what they're playing on, and it said Peacock. I was like, whoa.
Isn't that football deal mostly Notre Dame home games on NBC Network? I mean, it seems like I see a lot of their home games, but when they're on the road, a lot of times,
right,
like an ABC or something else.
This was a home game.
Yeah,
it's only home games, but this was a home game. This was a Notre Dame home game, and it was on Peacock. Oh yeah,
probably.
I think they, they're trying to get more people over there, and plus it was, like I said, it was UNLV. So
we'll get them familiar with at least going through the motions of finding it on Peacock. But
Sure.
I'll have to go to the Irish Insider message board and
There
see
you
what
go.
they had to say about it.
Sure. Well, like I said, people said the stream's the best one maybe you've had.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
very
was
good.
quality.
Because they did such a good job with the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think they know what they're doing with their streaming. I think like the sidearm sports sometimes struggles with like NCHC and some of the other stuff they do.
Right.
Flow TV even more struggles from time to time with their stuff.
Right.
ESPN Plus has been okay for the most part. Their navigation I don't like their DVR type stuff, but
Sure.
Peacock's the best for that.
Yeah, like even some of the ones it just doesn't feel like it's on TV. Like even Amazon with the football, it's good, but it still feels kind of not real to an extent. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how to explain it.
I see somebody like, an Amazon or an Apple going to the Major League Soccer. One thing Amazon should have done, 4K. Just go 4K. It's a streaming service. Have some kind of control. Hey, you want to see the all 11 view of a football game. You can just click a button, go to that. You want to change the audio. I mean, just give us more than just a linear stream broadcast. Give us the options
For sure.
to do those different type. Somebody's got to do for streaming to really kind of take over. I think that's the kind of things that fans should demand. 4K definitely different options. Hey, I want to see this camera view, or I want to see that camera view, or I want to turn off the audio and I want to hear just the sounds of the game.
Amazon's got more money to do anything with, so if anyone's going to do it, it should be done.
Yeah,
I would totally be on that coaches channel. Like for the National Football Championship, they would have like 4 coaches with pizzas breaking down the game as it's happening. I would love that for any sport event because that's my favorite. And like they start breaking down during commercial breaks, plays through the clicker saying this is what they're trying to do.
Expletives start blowing.
Yep.
Well, you get the Peyton cast for Monday Night Football.
Awesome.
I don't watch Monday Night Football anymore. I watch when Peyton and Eli are on.
I mean, this week they had great. They had Barack Obama, Bill Burr, and then they had Vince Vaughn. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm a little biased, a little Chicago action there, but that's pretty good guests. Bill Burr is hilarious.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all for that.
And it's just fun. It's
Right.
not the same bland or but you get to still see the game. It's not like you're missing the game.
Well, and you can go back and forth. Like there might be a sequence where you're like, okay, I want to hear the play-by-play.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's some part of the game, or and then you get Peyton Manning's hilarious because he's like doing an interview, but he's watching the game. He's like talking to the guy, but he's like so focused on the TV screen. It's hilarious, and he's good at it.
I think if they could do that for hockey, like with Biz, like on TNT, like if they put Paul Bissonnette with some people and do
Wayne Gretzky.
Gretzky and Biz watching a game together because they're kind of funny in the studio, but like actually have a game going on.
Right.
But
this is something like
with Barkley there. I mean, Barkley, Biz, and Gretzky watching a game.
The streaming services could give you multiple feeds. You don't have to have a different channel or subscribe. It's part of this whole package. Here's this Monday night. Well, I'll just say the Thursday Night Football. Hey, you want Peyton and Eli on one side, or if you want a certain camera, there's technology out there. Just kind of embrace it. Don't think of it as a regular old broadcast. That's just all I'm saying. Yeah. Apple, I think, is going to need something like that with Major League Soccer because they can't just go in and do a standard broadcast.
They got to hear from the people.
Something different. Give us 4K. Give us something. 4K would be great. I mean, because I'm kind of so surprised that a lot of networks haven't jumped on that. But I don't know. Just some thoughts in my head.
Yeah. Hey, we all got them. I'm all for growing the game, making it more for all sports, but obviously hockey the most is finding other ways to get more people to watch, to make it more entertaining, because especially certain times of the year, it's long. Football's the only season that never feels long. Like every week, hockey, you're like, this is third, it's October. There's 79 more games left in the NHL, and
but
NFL just has this knack to make it seem every week so darn important.
Oh my gosh, mini camp, got to pay attention. I was like, what? This means nothing.
NBC did some of those Olympic games a couple years ago in 4K, and it was like,
Dynamite.
wow. It was so amazing.
Dynamite, for sure.
Everyone's like, it was like the jump to HD was huge. Let's jump to streaming. Let's jump to different options. I mean, they're gonna have to figure something out here, Viggs, because obviously a lot of these networks are getting to a point where they can't afford like these football contracts and things like that. They're gonna have to come inventive.
Sure thing. I think I got to pull the parachute, guys.
Me too.
Me
I
too.
got to pull it. I got to get my beauty sleep, guys. I got to be on here. Zoom
You got to be on
tomorrow.
TV in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get some sleep.
Get the
My
palm
voice,
trees
I
set
lose
up.
all
I
my
want to make
voice.
sure we get some palm trees in the background, though.
Well, I could get this little tree
Oh,
that guy back there, and then
there you go.
that
Or
that
do
painting
it
back
outside
there,
or something like that. So be through your
or
phone
the
or whatever.
the pool towel back there, the pool towel back there.
You need to have a little drink with an umbrella in it. These two.
It's not that glamorous around here. I'll tell you that, but I'm not complaining because the weather's been great. So one more week, I'm back to the mainland a week from tomorrow. So I'm sure we'll get some more previews. I'm going to be pushing. Yeah, I'll be pushing. I'm going to be pushing to get Big Ten Today segments as much as possible because just trying to get out there, man. They gotta push all the sports. So I'm gonna.
It's a good year for the Big Ten. So,
and obviously it changes when you add a couple
Absolutely.
more teams in a couple of years. That's just a lot more less hockey because all of a sudden you got teams out on the West Coast.
Yep.
That will cover football, will cover basketball, we'll have like men's volleyball. It'll have a lot of other things we're not seeing now. So
Yeah, and I mean the way that women's volleyball is taken off with the Big Ten Network is just, and I love women's volleyball. It's one of the women's sports I love the most.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We were talking before Viggs got on. Is like I think they got to start streaming games with real broadcast, maybe with So we'll see if that happens. Like there'll be the streaming game like that will be like regularly produced. Like you'll have the one game at least a weekend where it's
not just student crew or not just the arena cam. It's actually produced. Yeah.
Right. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure it's getting there at some point. So, all right, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one. Thanks, Cappy.
Thanks for having me. We'll probably be on in late February.
You got it.
We'll see if I can make it.
Good night, people.
Okay.
Broadcast over.